are many factors that must be taken into account when planning a safe lift. Failure to understand and apply the following practices may result in personal injury or death. The following guidelines meet OSHA and ASME B30.9 requirements. Never load slings in excess of their rated capacity. An important step in planning a safe lift is examining the load. You must consider the weight of the load, its structural stability, and center of gravity. If you do not already know the weight of the load, check for identification plates, shipping papers, manufacturer's catalogs, or contact the manufacturer. If you are unable to get a weight using these methods, you may have to estimate the load weight based on volume and standard material weights. Consult your supervisor if you are unfamiliar with these calculations. Another consideration involving the weight of the load is the center of gravity of the load. If only one crane hook is used to lift the load, it must be positioned over the load's center of gravity. Failure to do so will result in the load shifting and possible loss of load control. Whenever possible, fluids should be drained from the load to avoid shifting of the center of gravity during movement. Structural stability must be examined to avoid damage to or loss of the load. Some loads have designated pick points that are to be used for lifting purposes. If these are not available, be sure that the areas in contact with the sling will withstand the stress of the lift. Also remove or secure any loose parts. Check the sling tag for important information such as rated capacities, length, material, and manufacturer. Read the warnings on the sling tag and review the instruction sheet that accompanies a new sling for specific inspection and operating practices information. An essential step prior to selecting a sling is determining how the load will be rigged. You must take into account the type of hitch, vertical, choker, or basket, and the number of slings to be used. If lifting smooth cylinders or loose bundles, a double wrap choker or basket hitch may improve load control. This will give you 360-degree sling contact with the load and help prevent the load from slipping out. When multiple slings or sling legs are used, the legs may not be loaded equally. A qualified person should review the lift to avoid the overloading of any leg. After examining the load and determining the sling's rated capacity, you must inspect the area where the lift will be done. It is important that you identify the conditions and hazards of the work area and how they will be handled. Also be aware of how much headroom you have to lift the load. Check your hook travel and make sure you have a clear path. Locate electrical power lines, steam pipes, sprinkler lines, overhead conveyors, and air lines. If necessary, measure the ceiling clearances and doorways. Know in advance what lies in your lifting path. Look for movable or projecting objects, slippery surfaces, obstacles you could trip over, and dips or grades along the traveling surface. Additionally, you must contain or control pedestrian traffic in and around the load's travel path. Secure your work area using approved methods, such as rope, sawhorses, warning lights, and tape. You must never lift a load over people. Personnel should stand clear of the suspended load. Tag lines can aid in guiding and controlling the load. When choosing a sling that is going to be used in elevated temperatures, remember that each type of sling has a different temperature limit it can withstand. Web slings and Tuflex round slings must not be used in temperatures that exceed 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Keyflex round slings with their aramid fibers may be used in temperatures up to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Wire rope slings with a fiber core must be removed from service if used in temperatures over 180 degrees Fahrenheit. Wire rope slings with a wire rope core must be removed from service when used in temperatures that exceed 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Chain sling capacities must be reduced when used at temperatures of 400 degrees Fahrenheit or more. Permanent capacity reduction begins at 500 degrees Fahrenheit for grade 100 chain and at 600 degrees Fahrenheit for grade 80 chain. Never use chain slings in excess of 1000 degrees Fahrenheit. Wire mesh slings can be used in temperatures up to 550 degrees Fahrenheit. Check for chemical exposure before using slings. Each sling reacts differently to chemicals or chemical environments. Sling strength can radically decrease if used in or even near the wrong chemicals. Check manufacturer's guidelines for chemical compatibility. Loads must be rigged to prevent movement of the sling along a load edge. Tremendous pressure exists at the bearing points where slings contact the load. Should a synthetic sling slide along a load edge while under tension, there is a good chance that the sling will be severed and drop the load. Reduce movement by using sling angles of 60 degrees or greater and by using double wrap choker or basket hitches when practical. Always protect synthetic slings from being cut or damaged by corners, edges, or protrusions. Be sure to use wear pads to help protect the sling and prevent friction or cutting damage to the sling body. These protectors must fully resist the pressure created between a sling and load edges. Steel slings are less easily damaged by cutting and abrasion than synthetic slings, but pads may still be appropriate to protect the sling and/or load from damage. The usable life of a sling can be extended by following proper care and operating procedures. All slings should be stored in a cool, dry area. Web slings should be stored away from direct sunlight. Extensive exposure to ultraviolet light can damage web slings, decreasing their strength. When using slings, never rest loads on top of them and do not drag them on the ground. Do not point load the hook. Make sure the sling, attachment, and load does not snag on anything in your lifting path. Do not twist, kink, or knot slings. Equally important to the proper use of slings is guarding against personal injury. Always keep your hands clear of slings and loads and stand away from suspended loads. Also, never ride the sling or the load.